Hello friends, welcome to the world of Old Norse mythology, where swords and icy winds reign supreme. My life was shaped by the belief in honor and inevitable fate Ragnarok. In this Viking saga, the universe was created from the chaotic Ginnungagap, and Odin, the father of all, made the ultimate sacrifice to learn the secret of the runes. He cast his eye into Mimir's well and hung himself from the world tree Yggdrasil. This symbolizes the heavy price of wisdom. Heroes who fall in battle are equally divided between Odin's Valhalla and Freya's Folkvanger. This unique cosmic order shapes the Vikings' daily life and their perspective on death. Ragnarok, the prophecy that even the gods cannot escape, ends this cycle with the cosmic battle between the wolf Fenrir and the Midgard serpent Jormungandr. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. I also enjoy reading your comments. Imagine standing on a battlefield at the end of the world. The sky is torn open by lightning. Mountains shake and seas boil. In every direction, gods and giants are locked in fierce, deadly combat. Thor swings his mighty hammer, battling the monstrous serpent. Odin, king of the gods, charges fearlessly into the jaws of Fenrir, a wolf larger than mountains. The earth itself splits open, unleashing armies of giants and creatures of nightmare. A Surtur, a colossal fire giant, wields his flaming sword, scorching everything in sight. This apocalyptic event is Ragnarok, the final chapter of Norse mythology. But how did the universe come to such a catastrophic end? To understand that, we need to start at the very beginning, exploring a world filled with mighty gods, cunning giants, and legendary heroes. The stories we're about to explore come from ancient texts like the Poetic Ata and the Prose Ata, collections of Old Norse poems and sagas written down over 1,000 years ago in medieval Iceland. These texts are the main source of what we know today as Viking or Norse mythology. These myths have captivated imaginations for centuries, filled with tales of courage, adventure, trickery, and epic battles. From Odin's relentless quest for wisdom to Loki's clever tricks and Thor's heroic feats, each story brings us closer to the fiery climax of Ragnarok. So, gather around, settle in comfortably, and prepare yourself for an epic journey, a chronological retelling of the rich, powerful, and endlessly fascinating mythology that shaped the Viking world and continues to inspire us today. Long before the Vikings sailed the seas or warriors dreamed of Valhalla, the universe began in a cold, dark emptiness known as Yggdrasil. Picture a vast, endless void, completely silent, filled only with a heavy mist and the faint whisper of unseen forces. This gap stretched endlessly, separating two extremes of existence, a realm of frozen darkness called Niflheim in the north and a blazing fiery land known as Muspelheim in the south. From Niflheim came rivers of ice and frost, constantly shifting, forming glaciers and frozen lakes. It was a place of perpetual cold, dark silence, so cold that even breath itself froze instantly. From Muslim, meanwhile, surged relentless heat and fire. It glowed with lava, ash, and roaring flames. Ruled by the enormous fire giant Seir, who guarded his realm with a flaming sword brighter than the sun. Where these two worlds collided within Ginnungagap, something extraordinary happened. The fire from Muspelheim melted some of the ice from Niflheim, and from the Thor emerged life in its most primal form, a giant named Ymir. Now, Ymir was no ordinary giant. He was immense, larger than mountains, a towering figure whose enormous body contained unimaginable power. But Ymir wasn't alone in this void. From the same melting ice came a mysterious creature, a huge cow named Udumla. Audumla was just as crucial as Ymir, nourishing herself by licking the ice and providing life-giving milk that fed Ymir each day. Ymir drank deeply from Udumla's milk, growing stronger and larger, giving birth spontaneously to the first race of giants, who would eventually spread across this primitive world. Meanwhile, Audumla herself continued to lick the frozen walls of gradually revealing something hidden beneath the ice. Day by day, her warm tongue melted away layers of frost, slowly uncovering a shape that lay frozen and trapped within. First came hair, then a face, then an entire figure, a powerful being named Buri, the very first god. Buri was strong and wise, a deity born from the ice itself. In time, he had a son named Bor, who later married Bes, a giantess from the race of giants descended from Ymir. From their union came 3 remarkable sons, Odin, Vili, and Vi, who became the first generation of gods known as the Aesir. Odin, the eldest, possessed unmatched wisdom and cunning. Vili and Ve stood proudly by his side, fierce and determined, ready to shape the universe itself. But the 3 brothers quickly realized their universe was crowded and chaotic, dominated by the colossal Ymir and his giant offspring. To create order from this chaos, Odin, Vili, and Vi made a dramatic decision. They resolved to slay the giant Ymir. Together, they attacked the sleeping giant, and a fierce battle erupted, shaking Ginnungagap itself. Ymir fought back fiercely, his strength unmatched. But eventually, the gods prevailed. Ymir's immense body crashed down, lifeless and still. From Ymir's fallen body, the brothers began the epic task of shaping an entirely new world. They dragged his enormous corpse into the void, using every part of him to build their creation. From Ymir's flesh, the gods formed the earth, calling it Midgard, the realm that would one day become home to humans. From his blood, they created oceans, lakes, and rivers. His mighty bones became mountains and cliffs, and his teeth became jagged stones and rocks scattered across the land. The gods placed his skull high above the earth, forming a great dome to become the sky itself, for dwarves were chosen to hold up this sky. Nordri, Sudri, Ostri, and Vestri, whose names became the directions north, south, east, and west. Next, they caught sparks and embers flying from Muspelheim, scattering them across the sky, forming the stars, sun, and moon. Night and day began to cycle as the sun and moon chased each other endlessly through the heavens, guided by the gods' design. The new world began to take shape, beautiful yet still wild and empty, waiting to be filled with life. The brothers then discovered 2 pieces of driftwood washed up on Midgard's newly formed shores. Odin, Vili, and Vi approached these simple pieces of wood, one an ash log, the other an elm, and decided they would breathe life into them. Odin bestowed the breath of life. Vili granted consciousness and emotion, and Vi gave senses, speech, and hearing. These logs became the first 2 humans. Ask, a man crafted from ash and embel, a woman carved from elm, together. Ask, and embel would become the ancestors of all humanity, destined to live, grow, and build civilizations upon Midgard's fertile lands. To unify their creation, the gods established Yggdrasil, the mighty world tree. Picture an enormous, timeless tree, its branches reaching high into the heavens, and its roots sinking deep into hidden realms of mystery and danger. This tree wasn't just a symbol. It was alive, an immense cosmic structure connecting all corners of existence. At the highest branches perched a wise eagle, observing the entire universe. Running up and down the trunk was a cunning squirrel named Rattata, constantly carrying messages and gossip. Deep beneath, chewing relentlessly at the roots, lurched the terrifying serpent, Nidhogg, maintaining tension and balance throughout the cosmos. Yggdrasil held together 9 extraordinary worlds, each unique and vibrant, filled with their own inhabitants, adventures, and dangers. Gods, giants, humans, elves, dwarves, and magical creatures lived within these realms, interconnected by the branches and roots of this remarkable tree. With the universe now carefully crafted and bound together by Yggdrasil, the stage was perfectly set for countless legendary stories. Stories of bravery, heroism, trickery, an adventure that would captivate listeners around countless fires for generations, forming the rich tapestry known today as Norse mythology. At the very top of Yggdrasil's branches lay Asgard, the shining realm of the gods known as the Aesir. Imagine a place filled with golden halls, magnificent palaces, and breathtaking views. Asgard was home to some of the greatest gods in Viking legends. Odin, the Alether, who we will visit later, ruled wisely from his throne, always searching for deeper wisdom. Thor, who we will also expand on later, was powerful and brave and defended Asgard with his hammer. Mjolnir, ready to battle giants and protect humanity. Frey, Odin's wise and respected wife, held a revered position among the gods, admired for her deep understanding of destiny and fate. She was gifted with the extraordinary power to foresee the future, though she rarely revealed her insights openly. Instead, Frey quietly influenced events behind the scenes, carefully weaving together threads of fate to protect her family and preserve harmony in Asgard. Heimdall stood guard over Asgard, eternally vigilant against all threats. Known as the Watchman of the Gods, he rarely rested, constantly alert and ready. His senses were extraordinary, his eyesight so keen that he could see clearly for hundreds of miles, spotting even the slightest movement from approaching enemies. His hearing was equally remarkable. It was said he could hear the gentle rustle of grass growing on distant worlds, or even whispers from faraway realms. Heimdall, guarded by frost, the shimmering rainbow bridge that connected Asgard to Midgard and other realms. With his mighty horn, Gelahorn, always at his side, Heimdall stood prepared to blow a thunderous warning, signaling the gods whenever danger approached, especially when the fateful day of Ragnarok drew near. Asgard was bright, beautiful, and powerful, a place where bravery and honor mattered most. Beneath Asgard was Midgard, the human world. Midgard was a vast land of mountains topped with snow, deep forests filled with animals, grassy fields dotted with small farms, and rivers that flowed steadily to the ocean. Everyday people made their homes here, farmers growing crops, warriors training for battle, kings ruling over towns, and families gathered around cozy fires at night, sharing stories of gods and heroes. Life in Midgard wasn't always peaceful, though. The oceans surrounding the human world were stormy and unpredictable, and dangerous creatures sometimes lurked in the shadows, testing people's courage. Thankfully, the humans had the gods watching over them, especially Thor, who often came down from Asgard to protect them from threats. Sometimes, the gods visited Midgard secretly, disguised as travelers or elders, quietly helping heroes on their journeys or testing people's bravery. Midgard was a place full of adventures, challenges, and the chance for ordinary people to become heroes in their own right. Always watched closely by the gods above. Beyond Midgard lay Jotunheim, the wild and rocky land inhabited by giants, known as the It was a harsh place, filled with towering mountains, icy glaciers, deep valleys, and cliffs battered by powerful winds. The giants themselves were huge, powerful beings whose strength could rival even the mightiest gods. They were known for their quick tempers, cunning minds, and sometimes surprising wisdom. Though many stories painted giants as fierce enemies who enjoyed causing trouble for gods and humans, they weren't purely evil. Some giants, in fact, were wise and fair, offering knowledge and help to those who approached respectfully. Giants often appeared unpredictable, at one moment engaging gods in fierce battles, and at another forming unlikely friendships or even marriages with them. Loki himself came from giant blood, highlighting the complicated relationships between gods and giants. The gods knew to be careful whenever they traveled into They often disguised themselves or approached cautiously, knowing giants could be quick to anger or eager to play tricks. Another fascinating realm was Alheim, home to the Light Elves. Alheim was a beautiful, bright land covered in lush green forests, gentle hills, sparkling lakes, and peaceful meadows. It was said that the skies here always had a soft glow, bathing everything in warm golden light. The elves who lived here were graceful and magical beings, tall and slender, with eyes that shone gently and movements as smooth as flowing water. These light elves were famous throughout the 9 realms for their magical skills, especially their ability to heal, grow plants, and create things of extraordinary beauty. They crafted stunning objects from silver and gold, delicate jewelry, and clothing woven from soft fabrics and enchanted threads. Although skilled in magic, elves rarely involved themselves in battles or conflicts. Instead, they preferred to live quiet, peaceful lives, tending carefully to nature and using their powers to bring calmness and joy to their surroundings. The god Fire, known for prosperity and peace, ruled over Alf, further highlighting its gentle character. Because of Freya's influence, Alfheim remained one of the calmest and most harmonious realms, standing out clearly from the rougher lands like Jotunheim. It was a place of serenity, natural beauty, and quiet magic, where life flowed gently and the elves maintained harmony across their realm. Opposite Alfheim, deep beneath the earth, was the dark realm of Bedtime, also known as Nedova, the homeland of the dwarves. Unlike the elves, dwarves weren't known for beauty or grace. Instead, they were sturdy, strong, and incredibly skilled craftsmen, famous throughout the 9 realms for their talent with metals and precious stones. Swadheim itself was a shadowy place, filled with vast networks of caves, tunnels, and underground halls. Everywhere you went, you could hear the steady clang of hammers striking metal, the roaring of furnaces, and the bustling of dwarves working tirelessly. These underground forges glowed with the fiery light of molten metal illuminating the stone walls and glittering gemstones embedded in the rock. The dwarves of Spartaline were masters of their craft. They could create powerful magical items unlike anything else found in the Norse cosmos. Among their legendary creations were Thor's mighty hammer, Mjolnir, which always returned to his hand, Odin's unbreakable spear, Gungnir, and even the golden enchanted hair made to replace the beautiful locks Loki once stole from Thor's wife. Sif, each dwarf had immense pride in their work, fiercely guarding the secrets of their craft. They often traded with gods and occasionally visited other realms, but they mostly preferred their own hidden world, far from daylight and prying eyes. Dwarves had a reputation for being clever negotiators, demanding fair rewards for their incredible craftsmanship. Sardelheim was thus a place of constant creativity, magic, and hidden treasures vital to the adventures and tales told throughout Norse mythology. Then there was Vanaheim, the gentle and fertile realm ruled by the Vanir gods. Vanaheim was known as a beautiful place, abundant with nature, filled with green forests, wide grassy meadows, clear rivers, and fields bursting with colorful flowers. Unlike the fierce warrior gods of Asgard, the Vanir were peaceful, focusing on fertility, nature, and magical practices that kept their land thriving and balanced. The Vanir gods included some of the most beloved figures in Norse mythology. Freya, goddess of love, beauty, and powerful magic, lived here. She was admired for her ability to see into the future, her magical skills, and her unmatched beauty. Her brother Freya was the god of fertility and prosperity, helping crops grow and ensuring that the lands remained rich and abundant. Their father Nord ruled over seas, winds, and the coastline, guiding sailors safely home and keeping the weather calm for successful harvests. Vanaheim itself was a place of endless summer, always full of growth and life. Fruits and vegetables grew effortlessly, wildlife thrived, and animals roamed peacefully. It was a realm of gentle rivers, sunny fields, and calm, welcoming forests, where nature itself seemed to flourish magically. The Vanir were experts in natural magic, using their powers to keep their lands abundant and peaceful. After a fierce conflict known as the Aesir-Vanir War, the Vanir gods eventually made peace with their neighbors in Asgard, exchanging members of their clans to create harmony between the two realms. Far below the surface world lay Hel, the shadowy, mysterious underworld ruled by Hel, the enigmatic daughter of Loki. Unlike the bright halls of Valhalla or the peaceful fields of Folkvar, Helheim was a place shrouded in darkness, mist, and stillness. It was not a realm of punishment, but simply a quiet place where ordinary souls went after death, especially those who didn't die bravely in battle. Helheim itself was described as cold and dreary, a land of endless twilight where little warmth or color existed. Its landscape featured barren plains, cold rivers, and dense fog that never lifted, creating an atmosphere of calm but eerie quietness. A great wall and gates guarded the entrance, preventing souls from leaving once they entered. Inside, spirits wandered quietly, living out a restful yet subdued existence in eternal silence. The goddess Hel, who ruled this realm, was herself a fascinating figure. She had a unique appearance with half of her body beautiful and full of life, while the other half appeared pale, skeletal, and corpse-like. Despite this unsettling appearance, Hel ruled her realm calmly and sternly, maintaining order among the spirits who inhabited it. She rarely showed strong emotions, overseeing her quiet kingdom with steady authority. To the Vikings, Helheim was neither terrifying nor desirable. It was simply a place where the average person might spend eternity. Those who lived ordinary lives or died from sickness or old age, rather than in heroic battles, found themselves resting here quietly. It was a gentle, if gloomy, existence, far removed from the endless feasting and fighting enjoyed by warriors in Valhalla, or the peaceful bliss of Freya's Folkvar. Helheim stood as a quiet reminder of the calm, inevitable end awaiting most, carefully watched over by Hel herself, the guardian of the silent dead. Finally, at opposite ends of the Norse cosmos were two realms of extreme conditions: Niflheim and Muslim. Niflheim, located far to the north, was a land of eternal ice, freezing cold and dense fog. It was a world of snow-covered plains, massive glaciers, and howling winds where temperatures never rose and nothing grew. The landscape was harsh and lifeless, dominated by icy rivers and endless storms of snow and hail. From these icy waters flowed the freezing rivers known as the Alvgar, whose waters eventually created the giant Ymir, the very first being in Norse mythology. Thus, Niflheim played a crucial role in the earliest stages of creation itself. At the opposite end of the universe was Muslim, a realm of fire, heat, and molten rock. Muslim burned with constant flames and rivers of lava that never cooled. The air was thick with smoke, sparks, and ash, making it nearly impossible for most beings to survive there. Muslim was ruled by Surtur, a fearsome fire giant armed with a sword blazing brighter than the sun. Sat guarded his fiery realm fiercely, awaiting Ragnarok, the end of the world. It was prophesied that when Ragnarok began, Surtur would march forth from Muslim, bringing flames that would engulf and destroy everything. These two realms, despite being extreme opposites, helped maintain balance in the Norse universe. The freezing cold of Niflheim and the blazing heat of Muspelheim existed in careful tension, shaping the conditions that allowed the other worlds to exist between them. Their extremes were essential in shaping the cosmos itself, one bringing creation and the other eventually contributing to destruction. Among these fascinating realms lived many beloved gods, each with distinct personalities and roles. Each realm and character contributed to a rich, dynamic universe filled with adventures, dangers, and heroic deeds. The Norse universe was vast yet connected, allowing gods, giants, dwarves, elves, and humans to interact, shaping countless legends retold around Viking campfires for generations. The 9 realms provided a perfect setting for stories about courage, magic, and adventure. Stories that continued to inspire imaginations long after the Vikings themselves had sailed into history. Long before Ragnarok was foretold or giants threatened the gods, a fierce rivalry simmered in the divine realms, one that would change Norse mythology forever. It was a conflict between two powerful clans of gods, the mighty Aesir, renowned for their bravery and strength, and the mystical Vanir, known for their fertility, magic, and connection to nature. In the high and mighty halls of Asgard, the Air ruled supreme. Led by Odin, the Alether, this group of warrior gods valued bravery, honor, and heroic deeds. Among Odin's companions were powerful gods like Thor, god of thunder and protector of humanity, and Tyr, the courageous god of war and justice. Tyr was admired for his bravery and fairness, known as a defender of law and order, who represented honor and courage in battle. The Aesir delighted in stories of combat, conquest, and valorous deeds. They thrived on strength and power, and their halls echoed constantly with tales of battle and courage. But beyond Asgard's gleaming towers and golden halls lay another divine kingdom, lush and verdant Vanaheim. The Vanir gods, who ruled this land, possessed a very different kind of power. They specialized in fertility, nature, magic, and prophecy. Unlike their warrior-like counterparts, the Vanir placed immense value on peace, prosperity, and the cycles of nature. Key among these gods were Njord, lord of the seas and winds, and his twin children, Freya and Freya, who embodied beauty, fertility, prosperity, and magic. Freya, especially, was known far and wide for her remarkable ability to shape fate and see into the future. Skills the Aesir both admired and feared. Initially, the two groups lived separately, respecting each other's boundaries, but suspicion and mistrust slowly grew between the realms. The Aesir, who thrived on might and direct combat, found the Vanir's mysterious magic unsettling to them. The ability to alter reality or foresee the future seemed both suspicious and dangerous. The Vanir, on the other hand, saw the Aesir as reckless warriors, too quick to resort to violence and war, lacking the subtlety needed to ensure lasting peace and prosperity. Things reached a boiling point when a Vanir goddess named Gelv visited Asgard. Gelv was beautiful, enchanting, and deeply gifted in the magical arts. Her arrival fascinated the gods of Asgard, who had never encountered such powerful sorcery. Initially welcomed, Gelv quickly began to exert considerable influence through her prophetic powers, stirring jealousy and suspicion among the Aesir. Believing Gelv's magic dangerous, the Aesir reacted harshly. In a desperate attempt to rid themselves of her troubling influence, they seized Gullveig and tried to destroy her by fire. Yet astonishingly, each time they attempted this, Gullv emerged unharmed from the flames, reborn and stronger than ever. 3 times the gods of Asgard burned her, and 3 times she returned alive, laughing defiantly at their futile attempts. Furious and frightened by this unkillable enchantress, the Aesir named her Haida, meaning bright or radiant, and drove her from Asgard, vowing never to trust such magic again. When news of this treatment reached the lush and fertile fields of Vanaheim, the Vanir gods felt deeply insulted. To them, the attack on Gullv was an unforgivable offense, a betrayal of hospitality and peace. Outraged, they demanded compensation, but the proud Asia refused, unwilling to yield or apologize. This insult sparked deep anger, and war soon became inevitable. Both sides prepared swiftly. The Aesir donned their armor, sharpened their weapons, and readied their mighty fortress city of Asgard for battle. Odin and Thor gathered their finest warriors, confident in their martial skills and strength. In contrast, the Vanir gathered their own formidable powers, weaving spells and charms that enhanced their soldiers, strengthened their resolve, and clouded the judgment of their enemies. When war finally erupted, it was brutal and prolonged. Fierce clashes rocked the heavens, echoing throughout the realms. Odin himself led fierce charges, his spear, Gungnir, striking down opponents. Thor swung his mighty hammer, sending thunder and lightning crackling across the battlefield. Yet, for all their physical prowess, the Aesir quickly found themselves struggling against the Vanir's powerful magic. The Vanir gods conjured illusions, bewildered their opponents, and commanded nature itself against their foes. For days, weeks, and months, neither side could claim decisive victory. Eventually, after a war so devastating that it left both clans exhausted and weary, both sides sought an end to the fighting. The conflict had shown them that neither strength alone nor magic alone could dominate. True balance and peace required both. Thus, representatives of the 2 groups met in neutral ground, agreeing to cease hostilities and forge a treaty of peace. As a symbol of this newfound harmony, the gods exchanged hostages, an ancient tradition to ensure lasting peace. The Vanir sent their wisest and most respected gods to Asgard: Nord, master of seas and winds, and his children, Freya and Freya. Nord was warmly welcomed, quickly becoming beloved among the Aesir for his calm wisdom and fairness. Freya, gentle and generous, blessed the fields and brought prosperity to all the realms he visited, quickly gaining widespread admiration. Freya, however, truly captivated Asgard, known for her unmatched beauty, fierce independence, and extraordinary magical talents. She became an immediate favorite among gods and mortals alike. Her powers of foresight and magic became highly valued among the Aya, who once feared such gifts, but now saw their immense benefit. She shared with them the secrets of prophecy and taught Odin himself new ways of magic. Thus Freya's presence not only unified the gods politically, but enriched Asgard's culture profoundly. In return, the Aesir sent wise gods of their own to Vanaheim, symbolically binding the two realms and ensuring peace. Both groups benefited greatly from the exchange, gaining mutual respect and understanding. The treaty held firm, allowing the Aesir and Vanir to coexist peacefully from that point forward. This war, fierce though it was, led ultimately to unity. It reshaped the Norse cosmos profoundly. The previously isolated gods now stood together, sharing their knowledge, powers, and responsibilities. And while they remained distinct in nature and character, the two groups complemented each other perfectly. Asgard became richer, wiser, and more powerful through the presence of Nord, Freyr, and Freya, while the Vanir learned courage, strength, and directness from their air counterparts. And so the devastating war between Aesir and Vanir ended not in victory or defeat, but in an enduring partnership, one that strengthened both clans immeasurably. Peace settled over the divine realms, marking a new beginning and laying the foundations for countless myths and adventures still to come in Norse mythology. Among all the Norse gods, none sought wisdom as relentlessly as Odin, the All-Father himself. Odin was a god unlike any other, famous not just for his strength in battle or his rule over Asgard, but for his constant hunger for knowledge. To Odin, strength alone wasn't enough. He knew that true power lay in understanding the hidden truths of the universe, and he spent his life chasing secrets, magic, and wisdom wherever they could be found. One day, Odin set out on a journey to find a mysterious place called Mimir's Well. This wasn't just any ordinary well. It was guarded by Mimir, a wise being whose knowledge stretched far beyond what even gods could imagine. Mimir sat quietly by his well deep in the roots of the great world tree. His wisdom came from the magical waters he protected, waters that gave whoever drank them extraordinary insight. When Odin finally reached the well, he approached Mimir and asked to drink from its waters. But Mimir didn't give wisdom away freely. He demanded a steep price. If Odin wanted access to these powerful waters, he'd need to sacrifice something precious in return. Without hesitation, Odin agreed. He was so hungry for knowledge that he'd pay any price Mimir demanded. So Odin lifted his own eye from its socket and dropped it into the dark waters below. As his eyes sank beneath the surface, Odin knelt down, cupped his hands, and drank deeply. In an instant, his mind filled with visions, knowledge, and understanding he had never known before. From that day on, Odin walked through the world with only one eye. But what he lost in sight, he gained tenfold in wisdom. With this new power, Odin's thirst for knowledge grew even stronger. But he knew there was even deeper wisdom out there, secrets even Mimir's waters couldn't reveal. His greatest quest for wisdom came when Odin sought to master the power of the mysterious symbols known as runes. Runes weren't just letters or words. They were magical signs that held deep power. They could heal, protect, curse, and even shape destiny. But no one, not even the wisest gods, truly understood their full power. To unlock this mystery, Odin knew he had to make another great sacrifice. So, he journeyed to Yggdrasil, the mighty tree whose branches held the entire cosmos together. There he did something shocking and unimaginable. He took his own spear, pierced himself, and hung from the branches of Yggdrasil, suspended high above the ground. He refused food and water, enduring pain and exhaustion. For 9 long days and 9 long nights, Odin hung there, staring downward into the endless void below. On the 9th night, just as his strength was fading completely, something incredible happened. Odin finally saw the runes appear beneath him, shining brightly in the darkness. They revealed their secrets to him, and in that moment, Odin learned how to harness their powerful magic. With his last bit of strength, he pulled himself free from the tree, falling to the ground, transformed. He now understood the runes, their hidden meanings, and their incredible power. Odin's relentless quest didn't end there. He spent his life traveling the 9 realms, always searching for deeper knowledge, always watching and listening. To help him gather secrets from across the worlds, Odin relied on special companions, creatures who could venture where he could not. 2 ravens named Hugin and Moon were his most trusted helpers. Every morning, these clever birds would fly out from Odin's throne in Asgard. They'd soar across Midgard, Jotunheim, Vanaheim, and even the dark corners of Helheim. Hugin, whose name means thought, and Munin, whose name means memory, gathered news, secrets, and stories from everywhere they went. Each evening, they returned to Odin, perched on his shoulders, and whispered all they had seen and heard. Through these ravens, Odin knew more about the world than anyone else in existence. But Odin wasn't only helped by birds. He had wolves, too. Gary and Frankie were 2 mighty wolves that always accompanied Odin, roaming by his side wherever he went. Fierce and loyal, these wolves protected Odin, and in return, he fed them from his own table in Valhalla, showing the deep bond he shared with them. Yet, despite all this wisdom, Odin was haunted by a troubling vision. Ragnarok, the end of all things. He had glimpsed this terrible fate many times. Odin knew the day would come when the gods themselves would fall in battle against monstrous forces. He had seen himself at the very end facing the mighty wolf Fenrir, knowing he might not survive that final battle. This terrifying knowledge drove Odin's relentless quest even harder. Everything he learned, every secret he discovered was gathered with one goal in mind: to delay or even prevent Ragnarok. Odin hoped that by understanding fate itself, he might find a way to save the world he cherished. And so Odin continued his endless journeys. He wandered the world disguised as a traveler, carrying a cloak and staff, meeting giants, dwarves, humans, and magical beings, always seeking hidden truths. In Midgard, humans sometimes encountered this mysterious figure, never knowing they were speaking with the All-Father himself. Odin listened closely to their stories, studied their wisdom, and tested their courage. His wanderings made Odin not just wise, but incredibly crafty. He learned to use words to outsmart enemies, use runes to weave powerful spells, and wield his wisdom to protect Asgard and Midgard alike. Even other gods looked up to him, knowing that Odin's wisdom was their greatest strength against the threats to come. Despite his heavy burden, Odin never stopped searching. He never rested, never grew complacent, driven by visions of Ragnarok and a desire to protect his beloved realms. He pressed on relentlessly, collecting knowledge and secrets like a warrior collecting armor. Odin's quest for wisdom shaped him into the greatest and most respected god among the Norse pantheon. Yet deep in his heart, Odin carried a quiet acceptance of his fate. He understood the world's cycles of creation and destruction. He knew Ragnarok might be unavoidable. Still, he pressed on, determined to equip himself and his fellow gods with every bit of wisdom they might need when the final battle arrived. This was Odin, the Oned god of wisdom, magic, and strategy. With ravens perched on his shoulders, wolves by his side, and runes at his fingertips, Odin stood, prepared. No matter what fate awaited him, he was ready. Armed not just with weapons or strength, but with the greatest power of all, wisdom. If Odin was known for his endless pursuit of wisdom, Thor was famous for something simpler, strength. He was the strongest god in all of Asgard, powerful, fearless, and fiercely loyal. Wherever danger threatened, whether gods or humans, Thor appeared swiftly, ready to swing his mighty hammer. Thor wasn't just strong. He was also known for being quick-tempered, brave, and a little hot-headed. Yet, beneath his tough exterior, Thor genuinely cared about protecting gods, humans, and all the 9 realms. While Odin searched for knowledge to prevent disaster, Thor faced each threat directly, standing proudly as humanity's tireless defender. At his side was the legendary hammer called Mjolnir. Forged by master dwarf smiths, Mjolnir was no ordinary weapon. It could level mountains, shatter stone, and unleash storms of lightning and thunder. Best of all, whenever Thor threw it, it always returned magically to his hand. But Thor also wore a special belt named Meginjor, created by the dwarves as well. This belt doubled his already incredible strength, making Thor virtually unbeatable in battle. One legendary tale that showed Thor's incredible might involved the giant Hungir. Hungir was one of the strongest giants from Jotunheim, boasting loudly that he could easily defeat Thor. When Thor heard this boast, he grew furious and challenged the giant to a duel. The gods invited Hungir to Asgard, but soon regretted their hospitality as the giant behaved rudely, drinking far too much and insulting the gods at every chance. Thor decided to settle things immediately. He confronted Hrungnir, demanding a fight outside Asgard's walls. Hrungnir, never one to back down, eagerly agreed. Hrungnir prepared for battle, bringing with him a massive stone shield and a huge weapon made of solid rock. Thor arrived confidently, hammer at the ready. As they charged towards each other, Hrungnir hurled his massive weapon straight at Thor. Thor hurled his hammer, Mjolnir, in response. The two weapons collided mid-air, causing a deafening crash that echoed throughout the realms. Hrungnir's stone weapon shattered into countless pieces, but Mjolnir continued, unbroken, striking Hungir directly, instantly defeating the giant. Thor's hammer was unstoppable. Yet, a tiny shard of Hunger's stone lodged itself into Thor's head, slightly injuring him. Although Thor easily won the battle, this small injury annoyed him greatly. Thankfully, the gods quickly removed the troublesome shard, and Thor's reputation as the greatest warrior remained unmatched. Another famous story about Thor wasn't quite so serious. It was downright hilarious. One morning, Thor woke up and realized to his horror that Mjolnir had vanished. His mighty hammer was gone. Without Mjolnir, Thor felt helpless, vulnerable, and embarrassed. He stormed through Asgard, searching furiously until the trickster god, Loki, uncovered the thief. The giant Thrym had secretly stolen Mjolnir. Thrym refused to return it unless Freya, the beautiful goddess, agreed to marry him. Freya was furious at the suggestion and refused outright. Thor, desperate and angry, demanded a solution. The gods, struggling for ideas, finally came up with a ridiculous yet clever plan. Thor himself would disguise himself as Freya, wearing a bridal gown to fool the giant and recover the hammer. At first, Thor protested loudly. The idea was humiliating. Yet, without his hammer, Thor couldn't protect the gods or humans. Reluctantly, he dressed up as a bride, complete with a veil to hide his red beard. Loki, never one to miss a good joke, disguised himself as a bridesmaid, eager to see this ridiculous sight. Together, they traveled to Jotunheim with Thor, grumbling every step of the way. When they arrived, Thrym, believing the disguised Thor to be the goddess Freya, was delighted. He threw a grand feast to celebrate the wedding. But Thor's disguise was far from perfect. During the feast, Thor ate an enormous amount of food, an entire ox, and several barrels of mead. Thrym, astonished, asked why his bride ate so much. Loki cleverly explained that Freya hadn't eaten in days, as she was too excited about her marriage. Suspicious, Thrym moved closer and peeked under the veil, noticing the bride's fiery red eyes glaring fiercely. Nervous, he asked why his bride's eyes burned so angrily. Again, Loki quickly lied, explaining that Freya had simply been unable to sleep, eager for the wedding night. Satisfied, but still cautious, Thrym decided to hurry along with the marriage. When the moment finally came to bless the union, Thrym ordered Mjolnir brought out and placed in the bride's lap, a customary gesture to bless the marriage. This was exactly the moment Thor had been waiting for. As soon as the hammer touched Thor's hands, his strength returned, his humiliation forgotten. Thor leaped up, threw off his veil, and swung Mjolnir mightily, defeating Thrym and all the giants attending the wedding feast. Thor and Loki quickly returned to Asgard, hammer safely back in the rightful owner's hands. With the gods laughing endlessly about Thor's unusual wedding adventure, but Thor's most serious battles always revolved around a creature of terrifying strength and power, the Midgard serpent. This enormous snake encircled the entire world beneath the oceans, growing so large that it could bite its own tail. Thor and the serpent had several encounters, each filled with drama and danger. In one famous story, Thor went fishing with the giant Hymer. He baited his hook with an ox's head and cast it deep into the ocean, determined to catch something truly great. When he felt an enormous pull, Thor realized with excitement and horror that he had hooked itself. Thor pulled with all his might, dragging the serpent upward. Jormungandr burst through the waves, spewing poison and shaking violently, terrifying even the giant Hymir, just as Thor raised his hammer to strike. Hymir, panicked by the serpent's power, cut Thor's line, and the serpent sank back beneath the waves, escaping Thor's wrath. For now, this battle wasn't Thor's last encounter with the serpent. According to prophecy, Thor and Jormungandr were destined to face each other again at Ragnarok, the final battle at the end of the world. Thor knew that someday he and the serpent would meet for one last epic fight with the fate of gods and humanity at stake. Thor's adventures revealed not just his strength, but also his bravery, humor, and deep desire to protect the innocent. His hammer, Mjolnir, became a symbol of power and protection across the realms, representing not just physical strength, but courage and loyalty. Wherever danger appeared, Thor was there to fight. His fierce battles against giants like Hrungnir, humorous escapades disguised as Freya, and epic confrontations with the Midgard serpent became legendary stories passed down by generations. Thor's courage, strength, and fierce dedication made him one of the most beloved figures in Norse mythology. Always ready, always brave, and always protecting the worlds he cherished. In Norse mythology, stories didn't revolve solely around gods, giants, and monsters. They were also about remarkable human heroes whose lives blended courage, tragedy, and incredible adventures. Among these legendary figures, perhaps the greatest was Sigurd, famously known as the Dragon Slayer. His tale captured the imaginations of the Vikings, becoming one of their most beloved stories, told around warm fires and under starlit skies. Sigurd was born into a world filled with danger and destiny. As a child, he was strong, brave, and fiercely determined, everything a legendary hero should be. Raised by a wise blacksmith named Reen, Sigurd was destined for greatness from the start. Rian guided Sigurd carefully, teaching him how to be courageous in battle, wise in leadership, and prepared him for a legendary quest to slay the fearsome dragon Fafnir. But Fafnir wasn't always a dragon. Long ago, he had been a dwarf who, along with his father and brother, possessed a great treasure. This treasure, however, was cursed, driven by greed and the curse's dark magic. Fafnir murdered his own father and transformed into a monstrous dragon, jealously guarding the cursed gold deep within a cave. This treasure, including a magical golden ring called Anvarin, was said to doom anyone who possessed it. Reen wanted this treasure and cleverly convinced Sigurd to slay the dragon and retrieve it. Sigurd, brave and eager for glory, agreed without hesitation. First, Sigurd needed a powerful sword strong enough to pierce Fafnir's scales. He tried several swords, each shattering easily against stone. Finally, using shattered pieces of an old magical sword, Sigurd forged a blade so strong it cut through anvils as easily as through cloth. Armed with his new sword, Graham, Sigurd felt unstoppable. Sigurd approached Fafnir's cave carefully, hiding in a trench. When the mighty dragon emerged from the cave, his heavy scales scraping the ground and breathing fire, Sigurd stayed calm, waiting patiently. Just as the massive beast passed overhead, Sigurd thrust his sword upward, piercing the dragon's heart. Mortally wounded, Fafnir collapsed, his powerful roar shaking the earth. As the dragon lay dying, it warned Sigurd that the gold would curse him as it had cursed all who touched it before. Ignoring the dragon's final warning, Sigurd entered the cave and found the enormous hoard of treasure. He took the golden ring, not realizing its curse was already at work. Sigurd cooked and tasted the dragon's heart, accidentally gaining magical powers, including the ability to understand birds. The birds warned him of Reen's betrayal. His old mentor planned to kill him for the treasure. Acting swiftly, Sigurd defeated Regan and fled with the cursed gold. Sigurd's adventures didn't end with the dragon. He soon fell deeply in love with a beautiful shield maiden named Brynhild. Their love was tragic, bound by misunderstandings and deceit caused by the cursed treasure. Sigurd married another woman, Gudrun, due to magic and trickery, breaking Brynhild's heart. Eventually, jealousy and betrayal caused Sigurd's death, fulfilling the curse's terrible promise. The saga of Sigurd, filled with bravery, tragedy, and doomed love, became legendary, teaching that even great heroes could be brought down by fate and greed. Another hero famous among Vikings was Ragnar Lothrak, a figure whose story blurred reality and myth. Ragnar was a fearless warrior, a legendary king known for his bravery, wit, and incredible adventures. Stories told how Ragnar fearlessly battled armies, conquered kingdoms, and fought mythical beasts. One famous story described how Ragnar defeated a massive serpent guarding a princess named Thora. Ragnar wore armor covered in tar and sand to protect himself from the serpent's venom, a tactic that earned him fame across Viking lands. Ragnar's legend grew so vast, it was difficult to separate historical fact from fiction. But Vikings admired him for embodying true heroism, courage, and the spirit of adventure. For Vikings, heroes like Sigurd and Ragnar symbolized their core beliefs about courage, honor, and destiny. Vikings viewed death differently from most cultures. They believed dying bravely in battle was the greatest honor a person could achieve. Warriors dreamed of glory, hoping to earn an eternal place among the gods in Valhalla, the greatest hall of heroes. Valhalla wasn't just a place. It was a warrior's paradise, ruled by Odin himself. Only the bravest warriors, those who died honorably in battle, were chosen for Valhalla. After falling in combat, a warrior's spirit didn't fade quietly. Instead, it was carried proudly to Valhalla by magical beings known as Valkyries. These fierce warrior maidens rode winged horses over battlefields, selecting the bravest slain warriors to join Odin's army, known as the Unbound. In Valhalla, life was extraordinary. Warriors spent their days battling each other fiercely, training constantly, preparing for Ragnarok, the final battle at the world's end. At night, their wounds healed magically, and they feasted endlessly, enjoying the best food and drink imaginable, celebrating with friends and heroes, sharing stories and songs of past glories. It was an endless cycle of glorious combat and joyful feasting, the ultimate reward for bravery in battle. But Valhalla wasn't the only afterlife option. Vikings also believed in Folkvar, another glorious afterlife realm ruled by the goddess Freyja. Folkvanga was peaceful and beautiful, filled with fields, flowers, and golden halls. Like Valhalla, Folkvanga welcomed brave warriors who died honorably. Freyja herself selected half the warriors slain in battle, bringing them to Folkvanga. Here, heroes lived peacefully, enjoying eternal bliss, away from the endless training of Valhalla. Freyja's realm was equally honorable and desirable, yet offered a gentler eternity compared to Odin's warrior hall. Yet, not all Vikings could reach Valhalla or Folkvanga. Those who died ordinary deaths away from battle went to a darker, colder place called Helheim, ruled by Hel, Loki's mysterious daughter. Helheim was a gloomy underworld where spirits drifted quietly through eternal shadows and mist. Hel herself was half alive, half dead, her face divided between beauty and decay. Her realm mirrored this strange existence, cold, silent, and dimly lit. Vikings didn't fear Helheim exactly, but it certainly wasn't the glory-filled paradise they longed for. It was simply a quiet, peaceful resting place for those who didn't earn a warrior's afterlife. For Vikings, life was about earning honor and glory through bravery, hoping to avoid a silent eternity in hell. This powerful belief shaped their lives profoundly. Warriors didn't fear death in battle. They welcomed it, knowing they could join the legendary halls of Valhalla or Folkvanga, where eternal joy awaited. This mindset gave Vikings their unmatched courage, fierce bravery, and endless thirst for adventure. The legendary sagas of heroes like Sigurd and Ragnar inspired generations of Viking warriors. They shaped a culture that valued bravery above all else. These myths told Vikings that life should be lived boldly, honorably, and fearlessly. Heroes battled dragons, monsters, and armies, knowing glory or eternal reward awaited them. The gods rewarded bravery generously, welcoming fallen warriors into legendary realms like Valhalla and Folkvanga, places of endless feasts, battles, and celebrations. Around campfires and in great halls, these stories echoed night after night, inspiring courage and adventure in Viking hearts. Sigurd's bravery taught them that even the strongest could fall prey to fate and greed. But his courage lived forever in their memories. Ragnar's adventures reminded them to live boldly, embracing danger and glory. Ultimately, the Viking view of death, glory, and afterlife wasn't simply about endings. It was about celebrating life itself, living boldly without fear. It was about understanding their place in the universe, where courage and bravery guaranteed legendary immortality among gods and heroes. Stories of legendary heroes, epic quests, and eternal halls like Valhalla and Folkvang created a culture unlike any other, shaping the Viking Age and leaving an unforgettable legacy still felt today. In Asgard, the bright and golden city of the gods, there was one god who was loved above all others: Balder, son of Odin and Frey. Balder wasn't just popular, he was adored, known for his kindness, beauty, and fairness. Balder brought joy and warmth wherever he went. His very presence lit up rooms, and laughter followed him like sunlight. Balder was so beloved by all creatures that simply mentioning his name brought smiles to faces and peace to hearts. Yet, despite his happiness, Balder began to have terrible nightmares. Visions of dark and violent events that hinted at tragedy and sorrow. Troubled deeply by these dreams, Balder confided in his mother, Frey, the goddess who could see and influence destiny itself. Frey, determined to protect her beloved son, traveled across all the 9 realms, speaking to every living creature and every object. She asked everything, fire and water, stone and iron, plants and animals, to promise never to harm her son. Because all things loved Balder deeply, they eagerly made this promise. Soon Balder became invincible, unable to be harmed by any weapon or element. Even the sharpest blade bounced harmlessly from his skin. Fire refused to burn him, water refused to drown him, and no illness could weaken him. Frigg's magic made him immune to all harm, and the gods marveled at his newfound invulnerability. Delighted by Balder's protection, the gods created a new game. They threw weapons, rocks, and even lightning bolts at him, laughing joyfully as everything harmlessly bounced away. It was all in good fun, and Balder himself laughed alongside them, amused by his strange new ability. But one god wasn't laughing. Loki, the trickster god whose heart filled with jealousy and irritation. Watching the gods celebrate Balder, Loki felt an irresistible urge to spoil their joy, turning their happiness into tragedy. Loki disguised himself as an old woman and visited Frey, pretending to simply chat about the gods' curious new pastime. Frigg, proud and relieved, spoke openly about her son's invincibility, sharing how every single object and creature had promised never to harm Balder. But in her pride, she revealed one critical detail. There was a single tiny plant she had overlooked. Mistletoe Frey had dismissed mistletoe as harmless, too small and weak to pose any threat. Hearing this, Loki's eyes lit up with dark excitement, seeing a perfect opportunity for mischief. Without delay, Loki gathered mistletoe, carefully crafting it into a small, sharp dart. He returned to the gathering place where gods were playfully testing Balder's invincibility. Quietly approaching Horder, Balder's blind brother, who stood apart sadly. Unable to join in the fun, Loki whispered gently into his ear. He suggested that Hotter should join the game too, offering to help him aim. Hodtor, eager to finally participate, and unaware of Loki's true intentions, gratefully accepted. Loki placed the mistletoe dart into Hotter's hand, carefully guiding his throw toward Balder. The dart flew silently and pierced Balder's chest, striking him down immediately. Shocked silence fell over Asgard. Balder, beloved by all, collapsed lifelessly, his bright eyes closing forever. Gods, who moments before had laughed in delight, now stared helplessly, heartbroken. Joy turned instantly to despair as they realized Balder was truly gone. Odin, overwhelmed by grief, felt an unbearable sorrow. Frey cried openly, her tears filling the hearts of everyone around her with unbearable sadness. Hodder stood frozen in horror, confused and deeply remorseful, unable to comprehend what had happened. Yet no one felt more satisfaction than Loki, hidden in the shadows. His trick had worked perfectly, creating chaos and grief, his greatest delight. But Loki underestimated how deeply Balder was loved. Immediately, the gods turned their grief into action. Desperate to undo this tragedy, they decided to send Hermod, another of Odin's sons, and Balder's brother, on an urgent journey to Helheim, the realm of the dead, hoping to plead for Balder's return from Hel herself. Her bravely mounted Odin's fastest horse, Sleipnir, and raced swiftly down the perilous road to Helheim. For 9 days and nights he travelled through dark, cold paths until he reached Hel's shadowy kingdom. Hel sat calmly upon her throne, half beautiful and half dead, listening silently to Hermit's desperate request. Eventually, Hel spoke. She would permit Balder's return, but only if every single creature, object, and being across all 9 realms, wept openly, demonstrating universal grief for Balder's loss. Hermit thanked Hel gratefully and rushed back to Asgard, bringing hope to the heartbroken gods. Frey sent messengers everywhere, spreading Hel's conditions across every realm. Every creature, great and small, cried deeply for Balder. Giants, dwarves, elves, animals, stones, even mountains, shed tears, hoping to bring Balder back. But as the messengers approached a cave in Jotunheim, they encountered an old giantess named Thork. When asked to weep, stubbornly refused, stating coldly that Balder's return was meaningless to her. Th's refusal sealed Balder's fate, trapping him forever in Helheim. What no one realized was that Th was none other than Loki himself, disguised once again, ensuring Balor's tragic fate remained permanent. When the gods discovered Loki's role, their grief turned to anger. Loki fled quickly, hiding deep in the mountains, transforming himself into various creatures to evade capture. But eventually, the gods tracked him down. After a fierce struggle, they captured Loki and dragged him to a dark and isolated cavern deep underground. They chained him to a massive rock, ensuring he couldn't escape. Above his head, they placed a venomous snake, whose deadly poison slowly dripped onto his face, causing unbearable pain. Loki's faithful wife, Saigon, remained loyally at his side, catching the venom in a bowl to ease his suffering. Yet, whenever she emptied the bowl, the poison struck Loki again, forcing him to endure constant agony. Loki's imprisonment deepened hatred and bitterness in his heart, intensifying his desire for revenge. In his pain, Loki vowed that when Ragnarok came, he would break free and unleash chaos upon the gods, finally settling old scores. As Loki suffered endlessly, tensions rose across the realms. Balder's death had shattered peace and harmony among the gods, signaling that darker times were swiftly approaching. In the wake of Balder's death, the gods felt increasingly restless and worried. They understood this tragedy was no ordinary event. It was a sign, a terrifying signal that Ragnarok, the great and final battle, drew closer each day. Without Balder's joyful presence, the mood in Asgard became grim. The gods no longer trusted each other fully, constantly fearful of new betrayals or tragedies. Balor's death marked a turning point, shifting Asgard from bright hopefulness toward inevitable doom. Prophecies became more urgent. Whispers about Ragnarok echoed louder, and every god prepared cautiously, knowing the end of everything was near. Odin increased his search for knowledge, hoping desperately for a way to avoid or survive Ragnarok. Thor prepared himself, mentally and physically, knowing he must face terrible battles against monstrous enemies like the Midgard serpent. And Loki, bound and suffering beneath the serpent's poison, waited patiently, determined to unleash his wrath against those who imprisoned him. In this darkening world, Baldur's tragedy became legendary, a heartbreaking tale reminding gods and humans alike how fragile joy and peace truly were. Baldur had symbolized hope, kindness, and innocence. With his death, those things faded, replaced by suspicion, sorrow, and fear. Yet, as Ragnarok approached, the gods refused to surrender quietly. They prepared bravely, holding tightly to courage and honor, determined to face whatever fate awaited them. Baldur's loss was devastating, but it also unified the gods, teaching them painful yet essential lessons about courage, strength, and facing the future, no matter how dark it seemed. And so Asgard's golden age ended in sorrow, ushering in a time of uncertainty and preparation. Loki's cruelty had forever changed the gods, and Ragnarok was coming, an unstoppable destiny approaching rapidly, promising chaos, destruction, and the end of everything the gods had ever known. After Baldur's tragic death and Loki's imprisonment, the gods knew that Ragnarok, the final unavoidable battle, was fast approaching. Ragnarok was more than just a fight. It was the predicted end of the entire world, the ultimate showdown between gods, giants, and monsters. It was a day everyone feared, yet knew would eventually come, no matter how hard they fought against fate. Prophecies had long warned of Ragnarok, giving clear signs to watch for. First came the dreaded Fimbul winter, a terrible winter that lasted 3 long, bitter years. This wasn't just any ordinary winter. It brought endless storms, fierce snow, and biting cold that never seemed to end. Crops failed, animals perished, and even brave warriors struggled to survive. With food scarce and the land frozen solid, humans fought desperately amongst themselves, driven by hunger and fear. As Midgard froze, chaos spread through all 9 realms. Giants, sensing weakness, became bold, emerging from their hidden lands to challenge gods openly. Great earthquakes shook mountains and cracked open deep chasms, unleashing powerful beasts and dark spirits from beneath the earth. The skies turned dark, stars disappeared, and fear swept through all creatures. This was exactly what the prophecies had described, the signs that Ragnarok had finally begun. In the depths of this darkness, Loki broke free from his prison, shaking off his chains with a fury fueled by years of agony. Free once again, Loki quickly joined forces with the giants, becoming their leader and mastermind. Alongside him marched terrifying monsters, including his children. Fenrir, the mighty wolf now grown gigantic. Jormungandr, the enormous serpent stirring beneath the sea, and Hel, who commanded legions of the dead from Helheim. In Asgard, the gods knew there was no turning back. Odin summoned the bravest warriors, the Einherjar from Valhalla, heroes who had spent centuries preparing for this moment. These fallen warriors, hand-picked by Valkyries and trained in endless daily battles, stood proudly beside the gods. Thor gripped his hammer, Mjolnir, ready to face his old foe, the Midgard serpent. Odin, fully aware of his grim destiny, prepared himself to battle Fenrir, the monstrous wolf who had haunted his dreams. Freya, the god of fertility and peace, armed himself bravely, knowing he must fight Sir, the giant whose flaming sword would threaten to burn everything in existence. When the armies finally assembled, the ground trembled beneath their feet. The gods and their brave warriors marched solemnly, knowing their chances were slim, but fighting nonetheless, determined to face whatever fate awaited them. Across the battlefield, Loki's forces roared fiercely, eager to destroy everything the gods stood for. With a mighty clash, the final battle began. Swords rang sharply against shields. Spears flew, and shouts echoed loudly, filling the air with chaos. Gods battled giants, heroes fought monsters, and blood spilled upon the earth. Among the duels that defined Ragnarok, none were more dramatic or intense than those involving the gods themselves. Thor faced off against Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent. Their rivalry had lasted centuries, and now finally the two enemies met face to face. Jormungandr rose terrifyingly from the ocean, his enormous coils wrapping round mountains. Poison dripped from his fangs, sizzling the earth beneath him. Thor charged fearlessly, swinging his hammer with unstoppable force. Thunder roared overhead as they fought fiercely, each blow shaking the ground. Thor swung Mjolnir with unmatched force, lightning crackling round him, as he struck Jormungandr with a blow so powerful it echoed across all realms. The blow crushed the serpent, but as Jormungandr fell, it released a final burst of venom. Covering Thor, though victorious, Thor staggered back 9 steps before collapsing, poisoned and defeated. Elsewhere, Odin confronted Fenrir, the enormous wolf, whose jaws opened wide enough to swallow the sky itself. Odin fought bravely, his spear Gungnir flashing in the darkness. But Fenrir was too powerful. In one terrible bite, the wolf devoured Odin, swallowing the All-Father whole. Witnessing Odin's death, the gods briefly lost hope until Odin's son, Vidar, stepped forward, determined to avenge his father. Vidar was known as the Silent God, a figure of quiet strength and calm determination. Rarely speaking, but deeply respected for his courage and unmatched physical power. It was said that he wore a special shoe made from the scraps of leather collected by humans over generations, making it incredibly tough and unbreakable. Using his immense strength and aided by this powerful shoe, Vidar pressed his foot firmly against Fenrir's lower jaw, then grasped the wolf's upper jaw with both hands. With a mighty effort, he tore the monstrous wolf apart, finally ending Fenrir's deadly threat and avenging Odin's fall. This moment showcased Vidar's crucial role at Ragnarok, proving that even the most quiet and overlooked gods could emerge as heroes when the need was greatest. Across the battlefield, Freya fought valiantly against Surtur, the fire giant whose flaming sword threatened all existence. Freya, who had once given away his own magical sword, battled courageously, but was now weaponless. Despite his bravery, Surtur's flames overwhelmed him, and Freya fell, signaling another tragic loss for the gods. Yet, even as Surtur struck down Freya, his flames grew stronger, spreading quickly across the battlefield. With a powerful swing, Surtur unleashed his fire across the 9 realms, engulfing everything in blazing heat. Asgard burned, Midgard's forests and seas boiled, and mountains melted. Loki, battling Heimdall in a fierce and personal fight, managed to strike down the Watchman of the gods. Yet Heimdall also landed a fatal blow, ending Loki's reign of chaos once and for all. The final warriors continued fighting bravely, even as flames consumed everything around them. Giants, gods, heroes, All fell one by one, their cries silenced by the roaring fire and destruction. Soon there was no one left standing, only silence. Flames swallowed the world, turning everything to ash. The oceans rose violently, covering mountains, extinguishing fires, and drowning the ruins of all that had existed. Eventually, even Surtur's fires faded, leaving behind darkness and silence. The world lay still beneath a deep, endless ocean. There were no more battles, no gods, no giants, no monsters, just quiet and darkness. Ragnarok had arrived precisely as foretold, destroying everything in a final, spectacular clash. Yet, this wasn't simply an end. It was also a beginning. Beneath the deep ocean, seeds of new life quietly stirred, waiting patiently for the right moment. Ragnarok had destroyed the world, but it also cleansed it, allowing for something new to grow from the ruins. The gods, giants, and monsters were gone, but in their place lay potential, quiet hope hidden beneath the darkness. Ragnarok's legend passed through generations, retold around countless fires, gripping listeners with stories of epic battles between gods, giants, and monsters. These tales made clear that even the strongest beings were not immune to destiny. The gods, knowing their fate, faced their enemies bravely. Thor battled the giant serpent Joranda, while Odin confronted the wolf Fenrir in a desperate fight. Ultimately, despite their courage, the gods fell and flames engulfed the world, leaving silence and darkness behind. Even though Ragnarok brought an end to the ancient world of the gods, giants, and heroes, the stories of Norse mythology didn't fade into silence. Instead, these incredible tales have continued to echo through time, shaping cultures, inspiring stories, and capturing imaginations long after the last Viking ships sailed across the seas. Norse myths have left a lasting legacy, influencing everything from literature and movies to video games and even comic books. Consider for a moment how these ancient tales live on today. Thor, the powerful god of thunder, still swings his mighty hammer, not just in ancient sagas, but on the big screen in blockbuster movies. Loki, the mischievous trickster, continues his schemes and pranks in popular TV shows, comics, and novels, captivating new generations with his complex and entertaining personality. Odin, wise and powerful, often appears as a mysterious figure guiding heroes in countless fantasy stories. Even Ragnarok itself has become a popular theme, appearing in books, games, and movies as the ultimate showdown between good and evil. In modern literature, authors continue to draw heavily from Viking stories, fascinated by their rich characters, exciting adventures, and dramatic battles. Famous writers such as J.R.R. Tolkien borrowed heavily from Norse mythology when creating their fantasy worlds inspired by magical rings, dragons, dwarves, and heroic quests. The adventures of Sigurd and his cursed gold ring directly influenced Tolkien's famous tale of the Lord of the Rings, showing just how deeply these Viking stories have shaped modern storytelling. Video games also love the Vikings. Popular titles like God of War, Assassin's Creed, Valhalla, and Skyrim dive deep into Norse themes, allowing players to explore Viking worlds, fight legendary creatures, and interact with gods like Thor, Odin, and Freya. These games have introduced millions of people to Viking myths, breathing new life into ancient stories and giving them fresh excitement. Even everyday language still carries hints of Norse mythology. Days of the week, Thursday for example, come directly from these ancient stories. meaning Thor's Day, quietly reminding us of Viking legends each week. What makes Norse mythology truly special is its lasting power to capture imaginations. These tales remind us of bravery, honor, and adventure, values that still resonate deeply today. Viking stories celebrate heroism, cleverness, and courage, showing us that even gods have flaws, monsters have reasons, and heroes sometimes fail. This honesty makes their myths both relatable and endlessly entertaining, appealing generation after generation. And so, around modern campfires or cozy living rooms, these ancient Viking myths live on, spoken with excitement and wonder. Ragnarok's final flames may have faded long ago, but the legacy of the Vikings, gods like Odin and Thor, heroes like Sigurd and Ragnar, and the unforgettable trickster Loki, continues to thrive, ensuring their adventures will inspire us for generations yet to come. That's it. We leave behind the icy, epic, and tragic world of ancient Norse mythology. We learned that in this universe, heroism was measured not only by wielding a sword, but also by sacrificing one's most valuable asset, like an eye, or one's life for wisdom, like Odin. The Vikings' life was shaped by the belief in the inevitable cycle of Ragnarok and an eternal loop. This made them brave, honorable, and prepared for death. Details like the Midgard serpent poisoning Thor, Fenrir breaking his chains, and the Norns weaving the threads of fate show that even individual life possesses cosmic significance. The most interesting detail was Freyja taking half of the warriors to Folkvanga, a realm equally important to Valhalla. This was a unique afterlife arrangement where every hero who died in battle was divided between two supreme deities. These myths show humanity that there is always a hope of rebirth, through Elif and Elifrasa, even after the eternal destruction awaiting the world. As we conclude the stories of this stormy life, full of honor and sacrifice, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our future content, perhaps the mysterious creation myths of African tribes. Remember, the greatest battle is won with the greatest wisdom.